Hey guys, my name is Leonard Goodhart. I'm the lead developer on the 600 series uploader for Nightscout. I started working on it last March because we had just received our 640 pump after upgrading from the Veo series of pumps. For my daughter is type 1. She's 13 now, but she's had type 1 since she was 13 months old, and she's been pumping since she was about 8. At that time, there was no 630 or 670. Well, they were in the works, but not available anywhere. So it was a very America excluded kind of situation. There were lots of places around the world in Europe and Japan and Australia where the 640 and 620s were being released. So there was no really work being done in the States because there was no need. So I started working on it with a couple of the guys from the UK and from Sweden. And we took a while to reverse engineer the protocol because for the 600 series, the protocol is completely different to it is for the previous 5 and 7 series of pumps. So the Medtronic encrypted it for a start. That was the biggest challenge to get over. So once we managed to reverse engineer that, and after that was many hours of just painstakingly going through and figuring out what all the messages were. There was a bit of confusion after we did that because at that stage I only knew about the 640 and then other people started asking about the 630 when it came out in the US, and even some people that were on the 670 were asking if it was compatible, and I had no idea. So we did some testing and we found out that yes, it was the same protocol being used for all the pumps, but by then the repository was called the 640 series uploader, so that kind of stuck around. I think that's where some of the confusions come from. Last weekend I renamed the repository, so any links that are pointing to the old 640 repository will automatically get redirected to the new name, but officially going forward we'll be calling it the 600 series uploader.
And we have a great new graphic, which is right up behind me, and it's been a wonderful advancement. It's almost like Nightscout born again in being able to do this for the Medtronic pumps, because initially when the group was so North American centric, Medtronic was probably 20% of the group and everything was Dexcom. And when Jesus Berrien came out with his original solution for the 500 and 700 series, that was a huge thing. That was a huge thing. In fact, I think that's probably one of the biggest threads we've ever had in the group in 3 years, is because all of a sudden, everybody with Medtronic who had just been watching and waiting just burst onto the scene. So that was a fantastic thing. And a lot of times people will be more pro Dexcom than pro Medtronic. They'll compare their experience with the Enlight, original Enlight, which we had that same experience. It was horrible, but it was like I've written in the group. Someone at a conference said, you talking about your bad experience with the original Enlight when they're coming up on the 3rd generation of this. It's like you're talking about comparing an original iPhone with an iPhone 7. And it really gave me pause to think about that. And it's so true. You know, there's no comparison. Even the Dexcom, since the group started, got the 505 update. The algorithm is more accurate. And we all noticed a big improvement there. So one of the interesting things, though, is the group were very pro Dexcom, but Dexcom has never wanted to have anything to do with what we're doing. And I found it fascinating that both Jesus Berrien and yourself contacted Medtronic and were given a green light to do what you were doing.
I was very pleased that I said, look, here's what I'm up to. And they, not word for word, but they said, it's fine. Just, you can't expect any official support from us. But they were aware of, Nightscout and communities like it, like the We Are Not Waiting, movement. And I think one of their things was at that stage when I spoke to them about it in August, because that was when I was really starting to get a lot of momentum behind people starting to install it. So I wanted to check in with Medtronic. And they Yeah, they basically said, well, we're not interested. I said, we can do some stuff together if you're interested, you know. But they said, no, it's okay, we're working on our own thing and we'll have it all sorted out. So, you know, there'll be an official solution, which I actually am fine with. If Medtronic come up with a solution that's in the cloud, that's usable by everyone, then that's okay with me. But, you know, I'm not sure if that'll happen both from a whether they'll have the devices out there to do it and what their cloud solution looks like. So
that's fantastic. So that makes both your experience and Jesus Berrien's experience very similar, because he contacted them also. It's nice to see Medtronic do that. Basically, we can't come out publicly and support you. Fine, we know that. That's not a problem, but we're not going to stand in your way. Because in the We Are Not Waiting community, a company telling us we're not going to stand in your way, that's a green light. That's all we need. Well, actually, we need much less, but...
Actually, you know, there's a lot of talk at the moment in the medical community in general about hacking of medical devices and security concerns.
Right.
Having worked on both the 5.7 series code and the 600 series code, just from a security point of view, I have to say the 600 is a lot better. I mean, yes, we broke the encryption, but the encryption is not actually what keeps it safe. The thing that keeps it safe is that you have to pair the devices. So you can't, with the 5 and 7 series, you just have to know the serial number of the pump to be able to control it remotely. So send boluses, stop boluses, any of that kind of stuff, suspend the pump. I just have to know the serial number, and I could just pick random serial numbers. Whereas with the 600 series, unless I have a paired device, which you have to actively say you're going to do on the pump, you can't do anything with it. So I think it's just a more secure arrangement to begin with.
Wow, that's fantastic. So anybody on the fence about cybersecurity, that would make the Medtronic pump the most advanced security-wise, because Animus is open. The old Medtronic pumps are open. Omnipod, there's a secure scenario. Hopefully we break that with the Open Omni effort. But, well, that's good to know about the 600 series. And basically, at this point, what do we have to do in order to do the remote monitoring? What does this entail? What does this involve?
Okay, you want to get props series and uploading it to Nightscout. You need a Contour Next Link 2.4. It has to be the 2.4. There's another Contour Next Link which is works with the 5 and 7 series, but you need this one because they talk on a different frequency. You have to pair it with the pump because for security reasons, they require pairing, and if you don't pair, then the encryption doesn't work, so we can't actually talk to the pump unless these are paired.
Okay.
So some of the requests I get online about it not working, it says I can't communicate with the pump is because the pump and the meter aren't paired. You need a USB on-the-go cable.
OTG.
So it's a USB on one side and then the USB-A on the other side. So you just plug those in together like that. And then you need a USB OTG capable phone. If you go to the wiki page, we've got a list that we've collected of ones that we know work for sure. But anything that's USB OTG capable should work fine. And we've also got in the instructions an app that you can download to check that the phone is USB OTG capable, which if you're starting from scratch might not be useful. And then you just plug in that, and I've just made a little holder here that it works together with that. And then it launches the app by itself. And that's all you need is the app, the cable, and then the meter paired with your pump.
So basically the longtime Nightscout users that started out with an OTG cable and a rig, they will be able to use the same cable. They'll be able to use the same rig. And so now, are there people that are doing the printed cases specifically for the Contour?
I haven't seen any yet, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there's a lot of enterprising people out there, but I've seen guys, there's some of the guys in Poland have actually pulled the circuitry out of the USB OTG cable and embedded it inside of a, let me think, it was a Sony Xperia or something like that. They're very enterprising. So they made it a single unit, which is very clever.
Well, that's fascinating. So they actually have combined the contour link and the cable into a phone.
Yeah, but it needs some soldering work, so I'm not sure how widespread that is. I know a couple of guys have it, but I don't know if it's something that everyone can just go ahead and do, because you need soldering skills to do that.
So we do know that people did that for X-Strip. So anyone who's done it for X-Strip, it should be just a similar experience, possibly. Wouldn't be something we'd be doing, but all we have to do is just take out the Dexcom receiver, put in the contour link, and bam, we're ready to go. Because we've never stopped using, even though we use Bluetooth to connect our CGM, we still throw his little case for the original rig into the bottom of his backpack, and it picks him up, except at recess or lunch.
Yeah, what I'm hoping to do is I haven't come across anything. I've been looking for it for a while, but I haven't come across yet, is a Bluetooth to USB bridge, so that we could make that USB dongle accessible via Bluetooth, so that your battery life of your phone is completely independent from the battery life on the meter. Because the problem we have now is that when you plug the meter into the phone, the battery of the phone is keeping the meter charged, so it's draining more battery than it normally would just by using it.
Which would be the very same scenario that happens with the Dexcom.
Yeah.
So nothing has changed in that regard. And then Bluetooth will, and basically we tell people, charge your receiver before you plug it into your phone. So you'd want to make sure that your contour was charged before you.
We're in the same boat. It's the whole Dexcom story all over again. Ideally, we want to go to Riley Link sort of stuff again, where we've got a chip embedded inside of a box with Bluetooth that we can connect to the phone. People keep on asking me, why can't we do that? And it's because the protocol that goes over the wire, and Jesus actually, he's been involved with that again and helping trying to figure out what's going on over the wire, is different than what we send to the USB stick. So there's some translation going on there, but we haven't figured out how to get rid of the USB stick altogether. So once we've figured that part out, we'll be able to replace it with a Riley Link type device where you've got a chip that we're using for the radio comms, and then something with Bluetooth to talk to the phone, and then hopefully being able to remote bolus as well, because the meters can remote bolus, but when I try and run the remote bolus command through the meter, it says, nope, you're not allowed to do that. So there's a restriction inside the firmware of the meter that won't let us do that. But once we figure out how to do that with the radio chip,
one of the reasons the Connect software has not materialized for the 600 series is, I'm not sure if you're aware that one of the other APS companies hired the entire Connect team away from Medtronic.
Right.
Yeah, so there's
it surprised me. I mean, Medtronic had said that they were working on their own solution, and they said it would be ready last December.
Right.
So I wasn't sure that didn't materialize just because, internal timelines are always different to marketing timelines are always different to engineering timelines, but that would explain something for sure.
I remember talking to one of the employees of that company, and I said, I was talking about where has everyone come from, because it was a relatively new company, and they were going through the list, and it came to that, and they go, and we got everybody from the Connect team, and I was like,
right.
What? And I actually clarified 3 times. It was like, everybody came over. And it was like, yeah, everybody. But the Connect team in the beginning have been developer friends with the original Nightscout core developers. So it wasn't very surprising. And if you look at the difference between the Connect software and the Share software, the Connect software was more Nightscout-esque, you would say, than the Share software. It was more business and less glucose monsters. Okay, so we have to have the USB.
Right.
We put the contour link in, and basically we get all the same Nightscout functionality being reported to the Nightscout website. Do we actually get pump information in addition to the CGM information?
At the moment, there's a subset of pump information that goes through. So at the moment, the battery life is going through, reservoir level is going through, and bolusing state. So it'll tell you whether the pump is bolusing, whether it's normal, which means nothing's happening really, it's just delivering basal. And if it's suspended, especially for the 640 and the it'll be the 630 as well, and the 670, but it does the auto suspend. So the distinction with the 630 is the 630 is a low glucose suspend, 640 is predictive low glucose suspend, and then 670 is as well. So it'll tell you it's suspended. And then in the case of the 670 where it's auto bolusing, it doesn't auto bolus, does it? It modifies the basal rates. I don't have basal rates at the moment with the current version, but I'm working on it. So the next version will have basal rates as well. And it will also have basal profiles. So, in the Nightscout in the Nightscout system, you put your profiles in for basal rates at times, ISFs, carb ratios. You can upload those because you can pull them all from the pump, and then you can upload them automatically.
Fantastic. Now, do you have insulin on board?
Yes, insulin on board's there.
Nice. That's one of the more important things when I'm looking at a closed loop is how much insulin is on really board. Concerned about is the accuracy of the CGM, and Tim Street has done just a fantastic job on his comparison and the different MARD values, and basically he is a simple question, which CGM, complex answer. It's basically depending on what you're looking for ultimately. And we'll link to that at the end of the video. But when I I'm actually in contact with a Medtronic spokesman who's talking about, who's been using the 670. We're actually going to have a video with him. We just got approval today. And he basically stated you have to do the following in order to have it calibrated properly. And it was dead same what we have to do with the Dexcom to get numbers within 10 of the blood glucose. So if you know how to get a good number from the G5 or the G4 505, you just carry those practices over to the 670, the 630, and you're going to have a similar experience. Now, the interesting thing is, right now the 630 it ships with, and we just received it, it ships with the second generation transmitter, but when we get the 670, we're going to get a whole new system that's even that more accurate. So I guess it'll be good training wheels. We're personally going to run them both simultaneously for a month just to see where it is. One of the things our endocrinologist was concerned about was that if you don't calibrate within the 12-hour period, that the 670 will go offline. So it's not auto-bolusing from a number that could have drifted. And for us, that's not a problem because our best practices have us doing 3 calibrations. And that's what the Medtronic employee indicated, is he does 3 calibrations every 8 hours or every 12 hours and then midday. And so he's never out of the loop. Now, with the do-it-yourself loop, it will continue to bolus you if you haven't calibrated. And so, which is more dangerous, a system going offline, and perhaps it's a young child or a teenager at school that does not know or pay attention to that, or to have a system continue to bolus with a possibly drifted number. So the answer to both of those, as far as I can tell, is you've got to do your due diligence and best practice. Make sure you're calibrated properly. Like X-Drip, if you don't calibrate within a 24-hour period, your raw will disappear. And what's interesting about that is we get people popping up, and it's like, hey, how come my raw disappeared? And it's like, when's the last time you calibrated? And it's like, oh yeah, I haven't calibrated. So those are safety features, in my opinion. And it was interesting is our endocrinologist said, out of all the patients I have, I'm not concerned about two families using the 670, and they're you and this other Nightscout family, because she says you'll be monitoring this. You'll know if something goes offline, and this is the big push for the 600 series software that you've developed, is that don't take two steps forward by getting an APS and then take a full step backwards because you're blinded. You know, you're unable to see it. So this is one of the reasons why I'm very excited. And one of the reasons we're doing the video is to let all of North America know this solution exists. We're starting at the beginning, like in the beginning of the Dexcom Nightscout. And, you know, every time there's an advancement in the industry, it just blossoms. What the DIY community does, whether it's a group in Eastern Europe. I find that the Nightscout groups in Eastern Europe are some of the most advanced groups. They do the most with the least.
Yeah.
And so if they had a problem with calibration or accuracy, they figured it out. Whereas in North America, we probably just bailed and went to Dexcom, because that's what our family did. We were on the original Medtronic in-light sensor for 3 months, and it was just like, no, you know, this isn't going to work. But
and I have to say, totally for us as well, you know, going from the first generation Enlight to the second generation for the 600 series, there's a massive difference. Like our number of unicorns now is amazing compared to before, and even we've got the old pump still as a backup. And I recently bought a new transmitter, and it looks like they haven't updated anything with the original first generation transmitter, because it's still as flaky with the differences as it was when we had it the first time. We had the CGM transmitter there. So I have to say the second generation is a whole lot better, and I can imagine that the third generation for the 670 is only going to be better. It was great, as you mentioned before about the 670. What was amazing was that while I was working on this stuff, is I had 3 people on the 670 trial who were involved in asking if it would work, and they were helping me out. And because they were on trial software, and this was before we had the capability of, I was doing things through the CareLink server initially for the decryption. And because they had their own trial site, so we had to work out how we were going to manage that. And we managed to get it all working with the 670 before it was ever officially released. And then we've subsequently removed the dependency on the CareLink service altogether, so we can just do it directly from the stick and work out the keys for the encryption ourselves now. So it's great.
Yeah, that was probably one of the happiest moments for the community in 2016 was, I think it was 2 weeks from the time one of the mothers contacted me and said, I'm in the clinical trial and I'm horrified because there's no remote. And I knew the 640 dev team in the UK was working, and so I put them in contact. And so I think it was 2 weeks and she was able to monitor again.
Yeah.
It's just so critical. I mean, we're all here because we all started out with that being a necessity. You know, there's still nothing from the industry that says to me, I don't need to remote monitor. And if you look at the other companies, you've got one of the companies that knows monitoring is so important. They hired the Connect team. Plus, they already had core Nightscout developers who knew how to do it anyways. And then if you look at other companies, they have hired core Nightscout developers or co-founders. So remote monitoring isn't going to be an issue. Then we've got Insulet. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but with everyone having a remote monitoring solution, everybody's going to have one in order to be competitive.
Yeah, I think actually the real-time monitoring is really important for, it's not just for, catching lows, but even for monitoring going high. And
sure.
I think 670 will make a big difference, but I'm not sure, again, Medtronic tend to be and rightly so, for medical devices, be a bit tentative, so they won't be as aggressive as, say, your Open APS will be.
Right.
One thing we've noticed for sure, even with the 640, even though it has the predictive low suspend, which has been great for us, but because we have the monitoring, we can drive our settings a bit more aggressively because we know that we're going to catch anything that's a problem. And that's great for HbA1cs and for standard deviation improvements. So I don't think you can do that sort of thing without having real-time monitoring available.
Well, and the original offering, the 670, is very conservative in being a hybrid closed loop. It's probably like if you were just to use bare bones loop software without any of the enhancements but I don't think it'll compete with Open APS. But we're all on the bleeding edge. We're all on the front bleeding edge where there are just vast amount of people that are in need of an off-the-shelf product. Right. And as long as they know that we're not at the part in time where you can set it and forget it, I don't even see that happening for 7 to 10 years. The 690 is coming out about the same time Bigfoot releases, Insulet releases, iLet releases, and they have to do that because those are hybrid systems are going to have many more bells and whistles. If you look at the iLet, the algorithm now, enter your weight. Enter your weight. That's it. And so that's an algorithm that blows my mind. Now if I could just get them to tell me a release date. Because when it comes to the quality of life for our son, APS systems are going to be Pokemon. We're going to collect them all. We've had almost every pump system. I can't imagine not getting to the point where there's finally an APS system that takes away the majority of the need.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, for kids, it's critical, and that's for us. Our daughter having been diagnosed for so long. For us, the big concern is tight control because of long term. It's important for every diabetic, but when you have a kid that's living with it from the age of 1, you just want to make sure that nothing's going to happen before they even become an adult. So, and that then they're so used to it that control keeps going when they're looking after themselves.
Was your daughter diagnosed at 1?
Yeah, 15 months. 15
months. Our son was diagnosed at 12 months. So you've had that toddler. What was your first pump?
The first pump we had was the 512 Medtronic, the Paradigm 512.
With the Enlight 1 sensor?
Yeah.
So you harpooned your infant like we harpooned our infant.
Yeah, with the old inserter too, which was a shock. Yeah, she was not a fan.
So now there's a one-step inserter.
Yeah, and they've got there's a later revision of that one-step inserter, which is even better, actually. The one that originally came with it had the one green button on the front, and then you had to click it to release it, and then you had to let it go, and then you had to click it and hold it to pull it back out again. Mm-hmm. The new one has 2 buttons on the side, and you click it, and then you just pull the whole thing up. So there's no confusion about when you have to click and unclick and that sort of thing. So.
Well, I'm now hoping that that's the one they sent us last week.
I'd say they did. I mean, when I mentioned I ordered this the transmitter for the 5.7 series recently, and it came in a reboxed. They've got their new rebranding packages with the circles, and they sent the new model of inserter as well.
Nice. So now, for anybody sitting on the fence that is concerned about remote monitoring, they no longer have to be concerned about that. We've got remote monitoring for the 600 series. You folks are actively working on a Bluetooth version. And when Medtronic comes out with whatever version they have, somebody's going to build on top of that, do a similar Medtronic Connect. That existed for the 5 and 700 series and still does. So it's basically the options are just going to increase as we go forward. So I have no problem with an OTG cable. I know that there are just tons of families that are still using the original rig. There's people that are like, if it's not broken, don't mess with it. So there's no hurdles in this solution, which I like. All I have to do is download the app on my Android phone and replace my CGM, Dexcom CGM with the CareLink. And follow the same charging.
Not CareLink, they're separate USB sticks.
Oh. Which is the one that Contour?
Yeah. The CareLink is the old wedge-shaped one without a screen.
Right. Okay. And that is just for the 5 and 700 series, right?
There is also one available for the 600 series, but I think only clinicians can get their hands on those. You can't order them on the websites. So
okay. So the Contour. So with that charged, like I would have to charge. So basically, our best practices that we use with Dexcom for our rig and our best practices for calibration, we just take those and do those on the Medtronic side. And here's a question for you. The reason we're doing this is so that our son can be in a closed loop at school. Because our school is wonderful. Our school nurse is beyond fantastic. Never had a nicer school nurse. But he's perpetually in the 200, 300s, or he's crashing. And it's just, there's so many children there that she's working with that he's not in the loop. So we're looking to do that. And since it's all interchangeable with the loop and Open APS, it'll be interesting to see what the final solution is for us. But it's all compatible, so.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely looking at trying to do sending of data as well, like I mentioned before, so that we can make the 600 series APS compatible. But I can't make any determination on how long that's going to take us, unfortunately. But I think 670 will be great because it'll go a long way to giving people a hybrid closed loop
on this project
and still be able to
from the different aspects. You had mentioned to me that there was a core group of people that had provided support, code, help. So who's the rest of the team?
So to start out with, Matt Guy from the UK had done a great job of, before we figured out the protocol and were able to talk to the meter directly, he had a solution, again, going via CareLink, doing it through an Android device, using the stick to upload data through a virtual machine system. So he basically cobbled something together which was amazing, and it did the job. And so he was very instrumental in the beginning of at least helping me understand how things fit together and work. Then Tom Collins, he is also in the UK. He was helping out Matt. So he definitely jumped on board early on, and we worked together. And first we were trying to figure out the protocol. So most of that was, there's a few of us at the time trying to figure out how that all worked. I think Tom and Matt are still quite involved in the Facebook side of things. And then subsequently, I've had Volker from Germany help me out quite a lot with taking on some of the development work. The lead developer from Xtrip has also contributed some pull requests. He's not on the team, but he's been great with adding the support for talking to Xtrip. So that's another thing people are concerned about moving to the 600 series uploader. They said, I'll miss my Xtrip. But the 600 series uploader talks directly to Xtrip. So the way that works is you have Xtrip installed on your uploader phone, the 600 series uploader installed on your phone, and then if you enable the setting for it in the 600 series uploader, all the data that comes through the 600 series uploader will go over to Xtrip as well on the phone. So that means that you could even turn off uploading to Nightscout on the 600 series uploader and do it all through Xtrip if you wanted to.
Would that also allow like a camping mode?
Yes, that's the primary reason why that PR was requested was given to me, was that people were looking for a camping mode, and that was that's done through Xtrip.
That's fantastic. Now, who was the Xtrip developer? Who are we talking about?
I only know him by his. I'll just look through it for the GitHub. Jamoham.
Right.
So that's the handle on the pull request.
Now, David from the UK has done documentation.
Yeah. So David and Tom and Pablo from Poland have done a whole lot of work on the documentation. So the wiki, the site that's there with the prerequisite and the installation instructions and the FAQ they put together and a whole bunch of information there, that was all done by those guys. So again, I was very lucky that they were able to take the documentation and run with it.
I always find it interesting, the genesis of the project. You will get engineering level specs and instructions, and then there's another group that comes along like David and Pablo, and in fact Katie DeSimone from California is doing the Loop and Open APS ones, where greatly expanding on it, perpetually expanding on it, and that gives it a further reach into the community as it becomes more people being able to understand it. And then we get to just the cusp of video, but the systems change so quickly.
Yeah.
And video is just so time intensive, to get a video shoot. Someone actually has done like an Open APS setup, which was wonderful, but it was on a cloud service that deleted it after 2 weeks. So, yeah, that part's sad.
Yeah. But the thing is that what I love about the community is that everyone can help. Even if you're a complete newbie and you say, oh, I'm not a technical person. So my wife, for example, she hates technology. She's a Luddite, a self-confessed Luddite. So she doesn't like change. She doesn't like technology. And she loves what Nightscout can give her, though. So when she gives me feedback about this is terrible, I can't use this. And I encourage you, if you find it really hard to use, please let me know, put a GitHub request in, tag me on Facebook, whatever. So as an example, one of the things that kept coming up quite frequently was people would be having problems because of the old requirement of going through CareLink.
Right.
And then because CareLink was frequently down, the CareLink server was frequently down, people were not being able to upload, but it was because of CareLink, not because of us. So the question came up with, the comments were always, well, have you upgraded to the latest version? Have you upgraded to the latest version? So the next update that I do will have an auto version checker in it that will tell you if you're on the latest version or not, so that you'll know. So,
nice.
But it's just that I don't know about, because it works fine for me, and it works fine for the people I know who have it working fine. But if you're finding things difficult to use or there's something missing, then let me know. Another example is some people have been asking for, can I upload data if I don't use a CGM? So I made that change, also will be in the next release, that you can upload data if you don't have a CGM. I never did that before because I don't know why you want to do that, and I'm actually kind of curious to find out why, but I wouldn't have thought about it unless someone had mentioned it. So please always feel free to tag me and let me know.
So how does someone who's not using any CGM use the software?
Well, because it talks to the pump. The meter talks to the pump. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So my guess would be that it also tells you the BGs that have been done on the stick through the bolus wizard. So, when you bolus through the bolus wizard, you have to put in you can put in a reading. Those readings will come through as manual BGs up to Nightscout. So you could tell if, your kid was at school that whoever's looking after your kid is doing BGs and is entering them in and is bolusing. That would let you know remotely that that's happening. Yeah.
That makes sense. There's a lot of software out there like that. And when I look at that software, I always think that that's a lot of work to stop at the doorstep of a really great solution,
Right.
But, not wanting a CGM. Some people don't want to know. I always find it fascinating how people are so surprised at how food affects someone with T1D. And in fact, it affects everybody that way. It's just the difference in when the insulin is given through the pancreas or through the injection. And for me, I look at it like this. Yeah, there's a constant stream of information coming to my watch, but it's just like a clock. I don't freak out because of every minute the second hand is going around on my watch. But the number on my watch tells me where I need to be.
Yeah.
So the blood glucose number tells me where I need to be, what I need to do.
Right. And then just like, if you have to be at a meeting at a certain time or you have to wake up at a certain time, you set an alarm for that. So that's the same with Nightscout, right? You want to know, if I go below this value, then I need you to tell me. If I go above this value, then I need to tell you. But yeah, it's the same. Like you're saying, it's quite funny. Even myself, I recently put a CGM on myself and started. This is the backup pump, and you can get lost for ages just looking at your own. I'm non-diabetic, and I'm looking at these numbers, thinking, "What's my pancreas doing?"
Yeah, it was actually James Wedding, the president of the Nightscout Foundation. He was the first one that I remember in the group. He threw on a sensor and had pizza, and I think it spiked him to like 180. So I found it interesting that 2 granola bars would spike me to the same level as if I had like a combo at McDonald's or something. Right. And you learn quickly which foods to avoid.
Yeah.
And I find I eat healthier when I have a sensor on anyways. I don't know where it's all going to end, but literally for school, since he has to have an FDA-approved solution for school, and right now he just walks away from the Riley link and it goes open loop. So it's just a Medtronic pump for the school. Yeah. We're literally using Lane Desborough's "We Are Not Waiting" clarion call, because if we have the tech available and we know how to use it, we need to implement it. And for us, that's the 670 at school. Right. So I find it ironic that clarion call is now having me get the 670 when I really want the Bigfoot solution or the eyelet solution or that great tubeless solution on the horizon, the Insulet horizon. What about the other developer that helped on this from Ireland?
Oh yeah, there's a guy. He doesn't like his. He goes by the He has 2 handles actually. So on the Facebook chat groups, you would have seen him as Stimpy.
Right.
And
Stimpy J Cat.
Stimpy J Cat or Pogman on GitHub. He's been amazing as well. So we because it's reverse engineered the work we've been doing, we were finding that there was and the communications of between the pump and the meter and the CGM is all using a 2.4 gigahertz radio frequency, which collides very nicely with Wi-Fi and Zigbee in your house and your phones and everything. So we would have. It wasn't uncommon that people would get the 3 dashes. CGM has lost communications with your pump, which is quite distressing if you're sort of trending low and then suddenly you've got no reading and So he spent a whole bunch of time going out where there was no radio frequencies to interfere to try and work out how it all fits together, and he made some amazing pull requests and spent a lot of time reverse engineering how that all worked so we could make it a lot more stable. It was incredible.
And that makes Stimpy J Cat so impressive as part of that team. Truly.
He's so patient.
That's a lot. It was like when we did the interview with you folks back in August, the 640 dev team, they were talking about how patient you had to be. You think about what Stimpy did, and then you think about the patience of Job that Ben West had over 7 years. That so much is based on. Those are 1 in a million.
Yeah, I mean, Ben and Peachron, they did an incredible amount of work into decoding the 5.7 series stuff that is what gives us, OpenAPS and Loop now. That work is, you wouldn't have it without it.
Fantastic. There is one thing I want to talk about before we leave. Are you free to talk about where you are now working?
I am. I can talk about where I'm working now. So, yeah.
Big plug for our friends over at
Tidepool.
Tidepool.
Yeah, there's another common, thing I get asked a lot about interaction between Nightscout and Tidepool, and they're kind of different systems at the moment, and they have different needs. But we're doing I'm treading the line very carefully between being a Tidepool developer and being a Nightscout developer, and then trying to find a way to combine them.
Well, I think at some future date that Nightscout would be able to upload to Tidepool so that everyone would be able to use the Tidepool solutions as eloquently voiced by Brandon Arbiter back in 2014. I've wanted them ever since. And John Kostick at the University of Rochester had amazing success in implementing those features for Tidepool into the clinics at the university. So there's a whole other thing. And for our family, we used a basic graft for 2 years until we closed loop. Once we closed loop, we were using the entire subset dashboard for Nightscout. Care Portal.
Right.
Great thing about a closed loop system, Care Portal is virtually automatic. So that makes that just right there reason enough to close loop, is you can have all of the Care Portal information automatically entered. But yeah, having the other features that Tidepool has, I'd really, really be excited to get those. We'd like to thank Leonard for his time and for providing this wonderful solution. This is truly a boon to where we need to go, our family in particular, and there's so many more families out there that need this solution. So we'd like to thank you on behalf of the Nightscout Foundation, on behalf of CGM in the Cloud, and 30 other specific groups that can benefit from this. Thank you very much, Leonard.
Yeah, it's a great community to be a part of, guys. So, yeah, it's good.
We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.